Welcome everyone to the UWS 3MT final. The Vitae 3 Minute Thesis competition challenges doctoral candidates to present a compelling spoken presentation using one single slide only on their research topic and its significance in a language appropriate to a non-specialist audience, and that is only allowed to take 3 minutes. We have 12 finalists from all 4 schools of the university competing for 2 prizes. Firstly, the Judges' Choice Award, which is kindly sponsored by Net Zero Scotland, and 2, the People's Choice Award. Voting for the People's Choice Award will open after we've seen all the entries. Please take a note of the number, title, or name of your favourite entry to help you vote. So, let's get started with our final. The finalists are, from the School of Health and Life Sciences, Megan Jones, talking about It Matters Who Your Neighbours Are, a social composition experiment aimed at improving welfare for ornamental fish post-transport.
Imagine you're driving along in a car, the car radio is on full volume and you can't turn it off. You go over some speed bumps, go into a pothole, and then have to brake really hard. Pretty uncomfortable, right? Now imagine all that, but you're a really small fish in a bag of water just sloshing around in the dark. As I'm sure you can imagine, that would be pretty stressful. However, the fact is 2 billion ornamental fish undergo these stressful and welfare-compromising transportation conditions every year. That's over 16 million a day. The main aim of my PhD is to improve welfare for ornamental fish through trialling novel water conditioners and natural compounds during transport to see if it reduces stress post-transport, and also look into how to improve fish's welfare through manipulating their social environment after transport. Because just like humans, fish's surrounding environments can affect their behavioural and physiological state. We found that after being transported for 30 minutes, if you place Variatus platyfish into a tank with fish of a different species or into a tank completely on their own, they're significantly less aggressive and show less stress-related behaviours than if they were placed into a tank that already contained fish of the same species. This reduction in aggression and stress-related behaviours as a direct result of manipulating their social environment is an indicator that the fish's welfare has been improved. These findings support an existing theory called social attraction, which describes a tendency for preferential behavioural bias towards familiar individuals based on previous social experience. Another theory, the prior residency effect, could also be occurring, as the resident fish that have prior knowledge of the environment are more likely to invest time and energy into aggressive behaviours when new individuals arrive, as the residents already have knowledge of the available resources and therefore have more to lose. This wasn't observed between the transported fish and the acclimated fish of a different species, potentially as they didn't see each other as a threat to the available resources. However, when transported fish were placed into tanks with acclimated fish of the same species, there were significantly more aggressive interactions by the acclimated fish towards the transported fish and vice versa. The reason we wanted to find out what the optimum social composition is for ornamental fish post-transport is because currently there are no set rules on what social environment they go into. So now we can make recommendations to industry on what social environment Variatus platyfish would thrive best under after they've been transported. Overall, the results of my PhD so far have found that with some relatively small interventions, the process of transporting ornamental fish can be made to be less stressful and less welfare compromising. These results could potentially change standard practices within the ornamental fish supply chain with benefit for both fish welfare and economic sustainability.
Second, from the School of Business and Creative Industries, Abdelmouhit Semlali, talking about a qualitative study of manager-employee relationships in Morocco.
Younger generations are the seeds to a fruitful future. But what if the seeds are planted in a toxic soil? What if the nature is already grey and gloomy, where no life exists? How can they root and grow? It's tough, isn't it? This is how I felt after working 3 years in different companies in Morocco. I was slowly losing hold of interest in work, in life, in everything. I was doubting myself. I failed because I couldn't find a workplace that can fit my basic needs and expectations. I also witnessed many of my friends unhappy with their jobs. And still, after 8 months without a job, I decided to go abroad and widen my horizon. I had always had a question in my mind. Why there is a conflictual relationship between managers and the new recruits? And how to explain a negative employee's attitudes towards their managers in Morocco? To answer this question, I found myself studying for a DBA, conducting interviews with young employees in Morocco. They told me about their jobs, the tasks they perform, and the behavior of their managers. They also referred to the social cultural environment and its impact on their lives. Among those influences, I found the religion, educational system, family, political system, and social values. After analyzing those interviews, I was happy to find answers to my early research question, and my study findings show that young employees are experiencing many issues, like heavy workload and flexible schedule, poor work-life balance, and weak task communication. My study contributes to a better understanding and provide a guideline for managers to improve their relationship with staff. I'm developing and providing a clear guidance to identify the needs of employees, understand their expectations, invest in trainings and development, and improve health and safety and well-being at work. This framework will also benefit the Moroccan institutions, such as the Ministry of Labour, the National Agency for the Promotion of Employment and Competencies. And my last words, never underestimate the power of a planted seed. From little seeds grow mighty trees.
From the School again of Health and Life Sciences, Adiola Mary Coyote, talking about pregnant women and new mothers with disabilities in Nigeria, a case study of their experience with healthcare.
Have you ever been stigmatized before? Have you ever been discriminated against before? Has any member of your family been asked why she got pregnant? This is the experience of disabled pregnant women and new mothers. Good day, my name is Adiola Mary Coyote, a PhD student at the School of Health and Life Sciences, University of the West of Scotland. The topic of my PhD research is Pregnant Women and New Mothers with Disability, a case study of their experiences with healthcare. Inclusion and equality is essential in developmental efforts to attain Sustainable Development Goal. Sustainable Development Goal is a global agenda by United Nations General Assembly that was adopted in 2015 to be achieved by 2030. Considering the Sustainable Development Goal, this research is related to Sustainable Development Goal 5 and Sustainable Development Goal 10. Sustainable Development Goal 5 is to ensure gender equality, while Sustainable Development Goal 10 is to reduce inequality within and among countries. Tracking progress and equality among disabled women is difficult as data are often unavailable. At the onset of this research, the literature was searched systematically in order to identify gaps in the literature. At the end of this search, through 4 databases, the gaps identified can be known by asking what and how question. This made me as a researcher to adopt the constructivism ontology, interpretivism epistemology, and a naturalistic methodology with a balanced archaeology. This research used a single instrumental case study research design by Robert Stake. A semi-structured open-ended interview was conducted in 4 general hospitals in Nigeria, using face-to-face approach to gather data from 11 pregnant women and new mothers with physical disability, 2 disabled women with visual impairment, and 1 pregnant woman with speech impairment. In order to strengthen the data collected from disabled women, telephone interview was conducted with healthcare professionals and 2 policymakers. The data collected was manually transcribed, and thematic analysis approach by Brown and Clark was used for the analysis. The main contributions to the body of knowledge are: mode of delivery of the women was selective C-section, betting partners were not allowed with them in delivery suits, lack of privacy and confidentiality make them to stay at home for traditional birth attendants to take their delivery, spirituality plays a major role in their holistic care, and they want healthcare professionals to respect this. The three cognate groups wishes for the government to tackle the stigmatization of pregnant women and new mothers with disability through education and ensuring the Disability Act is implemented in all areas of healthcare. Disabled women experience mixture of both positive and negative experiences. They enjoy their good family support. Public, family and friends were the primary sources of health information, and many of these women are unaware and on the use and different types of contraceptives. The study identified 4 unmet needs, which are high cost of care, the insufficient person-centered communication, the inaccessibility of care, and the lack of home-based care. Disabled women should be encouraged to access public insurance. Thank you.
From the School of Computing, Engineering and Physical Sciences, Raymond Holder, talking about Welcome to the Oasis, using VR games for computer science teaching.
Welcome to the Oasis. In Ernest Cline's novel Ready Player One, the Oasis is the name given to a virtual world that people can live a second life. In this virtual universe, anything is possible. People study, work and play in the same way they would in real life. Although the real world is on the brink of chaos and collapse, the metaverse is thriving. This new way of living can be accessed through using virtual reality technologies such as a headset to provide visual and audio stimuli with positional tracking of a person's movement to envelop them in a hyper-realistic video game. We are technologically moving very fast towards realizing this fantastical revolution in the way that we can live our lives, or second life. I've looked at the use of virtual reality as a teaching aid in computer science with current technologies and teaching paradigms. Studying in VR has been shown to improve students' engagement, knowledge retention, and learning outcomes. Being present in a virtual world to undertake tasks in a safe, intuitive, and engaging way has augmented the learning process. Plus, adding in elements of gamification can make learning fun, with students wanting to learn, improve, and progress. 3 studies have been undertaken looking at what makes VR an engaging learning medium, what is currently available off the shelf to educators, and finally, I built a VR game to teach the fundamentals of computing programming. I used a variety of methodologies to gather my data, with participants undertaking experiments in VR and sharing their thoughts on the experience, completing surveys and being observed. I also captured their movement, which allowed me to virtually reconstruct where they looked and how they interacted with the experience. I've also undertaken archival research to extract information on VR educational applications, and I built a database of these experiences. Participants felt more engaged by being present in the computer-generating worlds. Some even forgot they were in the real world. But their platform must become easier to access, more comfortable to use, and more affordable. The current batch of VR applications available to educators and students are very limited in their scope and vision, with several educational sectors being overlooked. I found that there is room for adding virtual reality games into educational settings, and definitely within the computing field. Platforms that are being developed now are allowing teachers, students, and consumers to build complex virtual worlds. These are being implemented and backed by companies such as Meta, formerly Facebook, and Microsoft. With software such as Horizon Worlds, Rec Room, and VR Chat, people are able to build everything from their own VR space to a fully formed game. The software presents a user with a set of gizmos with which they can simulate the real and unreal worlds, learning computing concepts along the way. I foresee that in the very near future, young people will be using the technology to learn computer science without even realizing it. And I hope to see you in the metaverse soon.
From School of Health and Life Sciences, Fiona Milligan, talking about liminality in breast cancer, a narrative arts-based study.
Preparing to live, preparing to die, living my life in 3-week cycles. I'm on the cancer train, but I'm still standing, still me. The narrative of women living with and beyond a breast cancer diagnosis. The narratives are visual and emotive, For some, a sense of abandonment and existential fear coexists with the process of day-to-day living. The title of my research is Liminality in Breast Cancer, a narrative arts-based study. Historically, liminality has been the focus of research into lived experience in chronic disease, where liminality is viewed as an enduring and present feature. The concept of liminality is one of life cycles connected to significant life events through which people pass, or in some cases do not. Remaining within that liminal space, neither ill nor well, betwixt and between, can have a profound and enduring psychological impact, aptly described as the disruption of life's narrative. 1 in 4 people will receive a cancer diagnosis in their life, and in women this is most commonly breast cancer. Over the last 20 years, mortality has improved, in part due to screening programmes and the advent of targeted treatment modalities. However, whether there has been a linear improvement in morbidity remains debatable. I began my research with a meta-synthesis literature review of the concept of liminality in a post-cancer diagnosis. From this, the landscape of liminality emerged. The main themes were dynamic and enduring, betwixt and between, pervasive fear, biological disruption and repair. In order to explore these themes further and uncover new themes, I met with 3 women who were living with and beyond a breast cancer diagnosis at different times over several months. Lived experiences and stories were told through narratives, verbal and text, unstructured interviews, art, poetry and photographs. Thematic analysis was used to construct and interpret embodied similar meanings that reoccurred throughout the data. Themes that emerged from this were fear and reoccurrence, journeys, abandonment, brick walls and boxes, and resilience. These were mapped against the landscape of liminality, and researcher positionality and reflexivity were included in the final analysis. In conclusion, there appears to be a prevailing and unmet need spanning the cancer trajectory, from diagnosis to living with or dying from a breast cancer diagnosis. Recommendations include the provision of services within future health planning strategies, both local and national, ensuring ongoing accessible psychological support from diagnosis to end of life if needed.
From the School of Business and Creative Industries, Abderrezzaq Osmani, talking about youth business startups in Algeria.
My name is Abderrezzaq Osmani. I'm on my 3rd year PhD student at the School of Business and Creative Industries, the University of the West of Scotland. My thesis is focused on youth business startups in Algeria. And the main question I am looking to answer is what can be done to engage the youth in small business entrepreneurship across Algeria and thus implement a sustainable solution to the country's unemployment problem. Algeria is a hydrocarbon country. The economy is based on extracting oil and gas and exporting it to mainly Europe. And the work I'm doing is really looking to connect as well the development of entrepreneurship and the overall development of the Algerian economy, particularly in the post-oil landscape. I developed a conceptual model of entrepreneurship and economic growth, and that is really linking the two together. And the way it works is the resources and the revenue the country is getting from the oil and gas exported. Percentage of it will be focused mainly on developing youth entrepreneurship and upskilling the youth, supporting them to create enterprises, and by doing that, that will create jobs and create surplus in the economy. That means economic growth. The GDP will increase, and we will increase jobs and secure jobs. The circle will keep going. All the surplus, all the percentage, will put it through to training. I looked at 3 sectors: manufacturing, leisure, hospitality, and technology. And I realized that these sectors are really ready to take off. And that is really the focus of my project.
From the School of Health and Life Sciences, Angela Gregory talking about the thing.
I'd like to tell you a story. Once upon a time there was a thing. The thing is a term coined by educational researcher Robert Stake to describe the unique focal points of qualitative research. Sparking my creativity, I decided to make my own thing in the form of a sculpture to document my PhD journey. My PhD is a qualitative, participatory study aiming to answer the question, how can we understand meaning in activities and interactions for people with advanced dementia to enhance their everyday experience within a care home setting? I'm working directly with 4 people living with advanced dementia, 4 family members and 6 care home staff using video and other creative methods. This research is important because people living with advanced dementia are often misunderstood, misrepresented and stigmatised, leading to limited opportunities for meaningful occupation, interaction and the right to be an active part of society. At first, the sculpture was made from a wire frame, representing the foundations of my study, the methodology and the underlying theories, such as a feather to note my reading of Frankl's Spiritual Freedom in his search for meaning, and a love heart to narrate Kitwood, who advocated the needs of people living with dementia, for example, love and occupation. Various objects can be seen on the structure too, such as toy shoes and a mini Toby jug, symbolising some of the literature I have read about objects and people living with dementia. The golden thread, or literature review, has taught me the potential importance and spontaneity, time and existence in advanced dementia care, hence the clock faces. Creativity is a key part of my research, both in the way I'm spending time with people living with advanced dementia through doing activities with them, to arts-based workshops with families and care home staff. This approach is flexible, participatory and easily adaptable to suit the interests and strengths of participants, and is represented in my sculpture through fabrics, images, embroidered writing and collage. As part of this process, I sew the data whilst listening to it and watching it, so it's directly embedded into my sculpture. Clovid, a model of COVID-19 using clothes, and the masks represent how the pandemic has found a role within the research and has highlighted the importance of meaning in activity for us all. I'm currently collecting my data, and the participants living with advanced dementia are sensitive and caring individuals who seem to enjoy engaging through the research. The moral of this story is not to underestimate or judge people living with advanced dementia, but instead to actually see them, to celebrate their uniqueness and their valuable contributions. I hope the findings of this study will enhance the meaning and quality of life in the everyday lives of people living with advanced dementia. Thank you.
From the School of Computing, Engineering, Physical Sciences, Jessica Broscheid talking about designing and exploring interfaces for human-atmosphere interaction.
Interactive technologies are increasingly being used as mediators for addressing environmental issues in the society. But little is known about the user's felt experience during an interaction. To explore what participants experience, I designed and implemented physical computer systems that draw on the concept of sentinel species to convey the air quality as multisensory experience. Sentinel species are organisms that show sensitive behavior in relation to environmental contaminations and can therefore be employed as early warning signals. One familiar example is the miner's canary, which you can see on the slide. In the era of early coal and steel industries, miners were confronted with hazardous gases in shafts. Therefore, small animals such as the canary were used as an early warning system to detect environmental contaminations. However, in my research, I used this narrative to raise awareness about an invisible phenomenon such as urban air pollution. I therefore envisioned an entire system where users can explore a different atmosphere with a body-worn interface that draws on the main characteristics of the miner's canary, such as breathing and singing. So I created a feathered shape-changing computer system and interpreted the real-time sensor measurements into movement and sound. Then I evaluated the interactive experience with 14 participants in an experimental setting by using the Think Aloud method, semi-structured interviews, and a questionnaire. The content analysis indicated promising direction towards a companion that communicates the quality of air through its behavior and thus also engages with the user's empathy on a cognitive and emotional level. In summary, my research provides theoretical, practice-based, and empirical contributions in the field of human-computer interaction. In addition, the findings implicate promising opportunities to support a sustainable development, including environmental awareness among the civil society and personal health care systems that not only generate knowledge about the environment, but also engage on an emotional level. Thank you.
From the School of Health and Life Sciences, Jean-Benoit Darod-Detaille talking about understanding shrimp feeding behaviour in aquaculture ponds.
Do you know where this picture was taken? On the edge of a shrimp farming pond in Vietnam, in case you were wondering where your summer paella comes from. 2/3 of the shrimp we eat comes from such places, from farms in Asia and Latin America. Some are big, some are small, either extensive or intensive, like this one in the picture, but all have the same problem. How to feed the shrimp? And do you know what we feed them? Pellets, like your goldfish, for example. Shrimp spend most of their time feeding out of the bottom, which prevents the farmer from visually assessing feeding activity. So how do we know what to provide pellets in the pond? How often and in what amounts? Well, way too often the answer is we don't really know. And that's a problem, because lack of knowledge on the behavior of the animals often results in overfeeding. Put yourself in a farmer's shoes for a moment. You want your animals to grow as fast and as big as they can. So you want to make sure they don't get hungry. But you have a narrow time window once the feed inside the water for the animal to scent and find it into the bottom. So if they happen not to feel hungry, feed is lost. And lost feed means degraded economic performances for the farm, but also poor water quality that results in degraded animal welfare and pollution of the environment surrounding the farm. So how can we monitor shrimp behavior? Well, there are a few ways to do it that use modern approaches to either see or estimate what's happening inside a pond. One of the approaches, provided that water is not too murky, is to use cameras at the bottom and record behavior at various locations. In my PhD, I'm using state-of-the-art computer vision techniques to track shrimp behavior from camera footage in a combination of laboratory and farm pond studies to better understand what the drivers of feeding behavior are. My goal is to observe and understand behavioral patterns through time and space in ponds, how the animal react to feed distribution, and how some water parameters may influence this. So far, we found an effect of water turbidity on feeding behavior, with shrimp eating more as water gets murkier. We've also shown that large shrimp movements occur inside farming ponds, which are partly driven by feed distribution, and we are now looking at other drivers and how those movements are structured. In the end, by providing a novel insight into shrimp behavior, I believe my PhD could contribute to improved practices, which eventually will lead farmers toward better sustainability, animal welfare, and performance to feed tomorrow's world.
From the School of Business and Creative Industries, Usman Masood, talking about risk and resilience of the Scottish beef industry.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Beef Lovers. My research is all about beef, and beef. How many of us are aware of the beef's journey before landing in our plates? I hope not many. So my research is focused on the beef processing industry of Scotland, and it will look at the risk and resilience of Scottish beef industry as they make a significant contribution to the Scottish economy. The research will explore how resilient they were during the pandemic and post-Brexit. During the pandemic COVID-19, we have seen various supply chain disruptions, resulting in simultaneous closure of businesses around the globe. The buyers' were closed, and the suppliers' were closed. And in terms of the Scottish beef industries, we have witnessed that there was a closure of slaughterhouses, processing plants, and if you talk of Brexit, there were trade bans, traffic bottlenecks, and restriction of imports and exports. The processing sector found it difficult to pass through the increased cost of cattle while managing COVID-19 day-to-day control and Brexit trade implications. So the small and medium enterprises, or the smaller medium processors, they do not have the financial and technological sophistication. So we will devise a comprehensive model for the measurement of supply chain risk and resilience for the Scottish beef industry. The resilience is the ability of an entity to bounce back after a disruption. It will assist them to gauge their level of resilience in terms of how ready they are to combat a disruption, how able they are to respond to the disruption, and how able they are to recover after a disruption, and finally, how able they are to grow after a disruption. A mixed method will be used to conduct this research, so which is in two phases. In the first phase, there will be semi-structured interviews, and in the second phase, there will be self-administered questionnaires. And the interviews, they will be conducted from the industry experts and the supply chain academia. So, and the proposed results we are looking at is the improved risk and resilience for Scottish beef processing small and medium enterprises, and it will help us in the identification of risk and resilience issues. And this study will also help us to replicate the findings into the other sectors of the economy. Thank you very much.
From the School of Computing, Engineering and Physical Sciences, Andrzej Jaworowski, talking about determining stress levels during training exercises based on wearable sensors and machine learning.
Hello, my name is Andrzej. Have you ever injured yourself while practicing sports? A little bruise here or a sprain there? Well, I have. I have even practiced yoga with a broken arm, but that's another story. I started yoga because of an 80-kilogram washing machine. Diagnosis: a wicked lumbago near my fourth lumbar vertebra. People then started to tell me, Andrzej, yoga could be good for you. It will soon become clear that the lumbago was not my real problem, but my competitive sporting ambition. And there I was, in a yoga studio, mad to mad. My gaze directed at my neighbors in front, left, right, and even back, and only one thought: I can do that too. So I started to squeeze myself into poses that my body wasn't made for. Long story short, I would rather die during a yoga class than watch other yogis do a deeper forward bend than me. Nowadays, as a PhD student, I know better. This self-harming behavior could have been prevented by technology. Wearable sensors could have measured my heart rate and movements. Machine learning could have analyzed the sensor data. My smartwatch could then have detected that I was too stressed and warned me that I was hurting myself again. And all of this in real time. Such a system might tell me to stay calm and stop killing myself. Well, that's basically the same thing the yoga teacher keeps telling us. Maybe I should listen to that. But as a computer scientist, I only believe in hard, quantifiable facts, like data from sensors worn on my body. So, my PhD research is about exploring how stress levels can be determined in real time with both inertial and heart rate sensors, and how stress levels correlate with movement quality and exhaustion. It addresses the lack of research on methodological and measurement standards for identifying acute physiological stress in the challenging context of training exercises. This research will contribute a systematic method and a set of features to train a model with machine learning so that the model can detect stress levels with only wearable sensors. I hope that my research will one day help people like me suffer fewer injuries from overexertion and overambitions in sports. Namaste.
From the School of Education and Social Sciences, Daniel Raymond Mackay talking about where would you choose to study?
Studying for an exam or a group project, finalising your thesis for submission, studying for your viva. We've all been or will be in at least one of these situations, but what do these learning experiences have in common? Well, they will always occur within the context of a physical location, space, or environment. So how important is our ability to choose a physical location for studying, especially a physical space which we feel is suitable for our study activities? What happens when we feel that our choice of suitable study spaces is constrained? And how should universities improve our choice of study spaces? I address these questions in relation to students' personal experiences of the study spaces in 3 campus libraries across a Scottish multi-campus university. I conducted group interviews and then circulated surveys to university students at these campuses. In these studies, I asked students to tell me about their study experiences in campus libraries when studying both alone and in groups. They told me how often they were able to choose suitable spaces for studying alone and in groups, which environmental features within the space were important for studying, so features such as noise and privacy from other people, temperature, lighting and pleasant window views, the layout of the space, the size of the space, and crowding within the space. I also asked students how often these environmental features interfered with their learning. Finally, students told me about the educational and psychological consequences of the environment. So what did we find? Well, one finding was that students experienced the same study spaces in very different ways. So one person's noise, for example, is another person's music. Students with more positive views of environmental features and who felt better able to choose suitable spaces generally had better engagement and motivation, increased concentration and productivity, and reduced emotional distress when studying in library spaces for individual and group learning activities. Students with more positive views of environmental features also felt that they were better able to choose suitable spaces for learning. Based on these findings, university libraries really should aim to maximise student choice of suitable spaces and knowledge of the spaces that are available for studying alone and in groups. In doing so, university libraries should consider the key environmental features that I mentioned earlier, such as noise and privacy, temperature, layout and crowding. Fundamentally, however, more positive views of study spaces were linked to better learning experiences. You should therefore speak with your university, and your university should speak with you about how best to design new and renovate existing study spaces to support your learning.
Okay, so you've now seen all our UWS 3-minute thesis entries. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the PGRs who submitted entries to the competition and of course all our finalists. The judges' winner will be put forward for entry to the national competition in September 2022. Now it's time for you to pick your favourite. If you're watching this from the Lanarkshire campus, please scan the QR code provided to you by our UWS colleagues. If you are watching this via stream, then please scan the code you see on the screen. Voting will be open for 10 minutes.
Three-minute thesis is a research competition set up to assist the communication skill and academic presentation of research students. It is a great learning experience and a brilliant way to put together the narrative of my research. It helps me to explain my research discovery within 3 focused minutes. It is simple, it is a sophisticated method to get feedback from academicians on the day of presentation. I will surely recommend the 3MT for all graduate students. Thank you.
I decided to take part in the 3-minute thesis competition because I was up for the challenge to explain the complexity and significance of my research to different audiences in a clear and engaging way. For me, it is a special and a unique opportunity to test my creativity and my ability to tell the story of my research in just 3 minutes. Because when I heard about the competition and its concept, I thought, yes, this is for me. This is an opportunity not to be missed. So I believe that my participation in this competition helped me improve my presentation and research communication skills, and also it was a good way to think about my research from different perspectives. Actually, I encourage PGR students to consider participating in this competition regardless of their year of study, because to be honest, this is an amazing learning experience.
I decided to take part in the 3-minute thesis challenge, mostly to explain my research work to other students. The world of shrimp farming is not very well known in Europe, but I intended to show that the issues covered in my PhD were larger than that. I hope I explain my topic clearly and encourage other students to get involved in the aquaculture sector. On a personal level, I think the 3-minute thesis experience taught me how to be concise and explain my subject to a broad audience of potentially non-expert people, which I believe will be useful for my Viva.
Hi, my name's Angela Gregory and I'm a PhD student at the University of the West of Scotland, and I entered the 3-minute thesis competition because I thought it would be good practice for my Viva, and also I wanted to challenge myself to articulate my research in a concise way. And I've learned a couple of things from doing that. One is how to pick out the key features of my research and communicate it to a wider audience. And then the other is how to represent the creative approaches that I use using just one slide and 3 minutes of talking. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Let's find out who's won our Judges' Choice Award, kindly sponsored by Net Zero Scotland. And our Judges' Choice winner is from the School of Computing, Engineering and Physical Sciences, Raymond Holder, with Welcome to the Oasis using VR games for computer science teaching. Congratulations, Raymond.
Welcome to the Oasis. In Ernest Cline's novel Ready Player One, the Oasis is the name given to a virtual world that people can live a second life. In this virtual universe, anything is possible. People study, work and play in the same way they would in real life. Although the real world is on the brink of chaos and collapse, the metaverse is thriving. This new way of living can be accessed through using virtual reality technologies such as a headset to provide visual and audio stimuli with positional tracking of a person's movement to envelop them in a hyper-real.
Special commendation goes to Jessica Broscheit from, again, the School of Computing, Engineering and Physical Sciences, who came a very close second.
Interactive technologies are increasingly being used as mediators for addressing environmental issues in the society. But little is known about the user's felt experience during an interaction. To explore what participants experience, I designed and implemented physical computer systems that draw on the concept of sentinel species to convey the air quality as
Thank you again to all our 3-minute thesis finalists, judges and sponsors. Please look out on our social media where we will announce the People's Choice winner at 3 p.m.